Hello everyone, welcome to a second thoughts overview of Lord Mazdamundi of the Lizardmen. As you're now aware, I'm doing these videos concerning victory conditions, starting location, diplomacy, mechanics, buildings, units. In the end, I also give you my thoughts of some balanced and interesting army compositions you may wish to use in your playthroughs. As always, take this guide as an introduction, just a way to check out how the faction works in the basics, not a truly in-depth guide, but it will certainly help you out. Without further ado, let's play with Lord Mazdamundi of the Lizardmen. For the short victory condition, we are required to destroy the Keepers of Bliss, located here and over there, and the Skegi, so basically two neighboring factions, and to occupy, loot, raise, or sack 30 different settlements. Very easy, one of the easiest ones to achieve. Should we achieve this, the reward is +3 hero capacity for all heroes. Great! Actually, especially great considering that you do have some difficulty reaching the skink oracles, for example, and this helps to ensure that you can recruit a few of them earlier on. Now, for the long victory conditions, now of course achieve the short ones, occupy, loot, raise, or sack 70 different settlements, and then control all of Lustria. That's basically what it says here, either directly or via allies or vassals. So it's pretty a straightforward one, and it's very easy to achieve regardless of difficulty. Now, one thing you should note is that most likely you'll have to contend with Morathi over here, and possibly the High Elves, depending on the situation here. More on that later. But in terms of the specifics of the long campaign, it's pretty short, pretty cool. Now, hero recruitment rank +10 for all provinces. This is great to ensure, like always, that your heroes are already good out of the gate if you wish to pursue domination or other objectives as well. Now, in terms of Mazdamundi, he is the Lord of the Solar City, not system. So he enjoys less diplomatic relations with most factions, so yes, he has a debuff there. Less construction costs for star chamber buildings, more on that later, and the right cost is -30%. That's the only one really significant. Otherwise, not the best faction effects. Probably he would require some rework on that regard, but still, he himself is a good caster, so yeah, we can let it go. Now, in terms of climates, not the best ones either. So, other than Lustria, or some parts of the Southlands, everything else is nearly uninhabitable or just unpleasant. So, and to top it out all up, Morathi is quite a pain, and she's located so close to you, so neighboring province, and you'll need to take care of her for certain in uninhabitable climates. So it adds to the issues of this faction. It's not a faction that easily can capture the whole map, as you can just see here. You know, large portions of the map are completely red. So yeah, not the easiest faction to control that. A fun faction, nevertheless. Your starting location is quite average at best. You have plenty of enemies in all directions, and bad terrain really close to your capital. Now, the first province has 3 settlements, but you can barely build every necessary military building, forcing you to have a second one for that premise. The only nearby 4-settlement province is actually to the north, and in uninhabitable terrain. Now, typical expansion routes go either to the south, or into Lustria, or to the north. And Morathi is quite a pain to deal, because her terrain is uninhabitable for you, so shortly thereafter the Wood Elves or the High Elves may even attack you. So taking Ulthwa is not out of the question, but may hinder you from completing your short and long campaign objectives. So therefore, Lustria is nearly always the better target, but it makes the replay value a bit lesser than others, but still, you may choose to go into the north. It's up to you. Now, with the added penalty from Mazdamundi with some factions, diplomacy becomes a bit more difficult. Lizardmen are quite over-the-tide or neutral-based, let's say, but they have issues getting into that stage, so bribes may be important to secure at least some friends with the Empire factions, with the High Elves, maybe with Bretonnia. It's always a good choice for you to ensure that you send out an emissary just to know those factions and try to build up some good relations with them. Enemies will most likely be Dark Elves, other Lizardmen, of course, Norska over there, the Vampire Counts over here, Bretonnia later on as well, you may want to do that, and Wood Elves and High Elves can also come in and attack you. So you find it funny that both High Elves can be an ally or an enemy. It truly depends on your campaign. So be sure, it's never a bad deal with the High Elves to just gift them a settlement, like one of these settlements that it's uninhabitable. It's a great way to get them into an alliance, basically. So outpost potential I would like to have is for some flying units with Bretonnia, with the Empire, maybe some missile troops and artillery, and with the High Elves, of course, some Sisters of Avalorn, if not just some basic archers, since your faction kind of misses out on those, at least in terms of range. Of course, you have chameleon skinks, but not the same thing. So yeah, nothing like some Sisters of Avalorn following dinosaurs for quite a view on the battlefield. Rights are the first mechanic that I'm talking about. So they're fairly decent, although some are costly, even with the minus 30% price from Mazdamundi. Now, Primeval Glory gives you an army, basically, and an army ability, the Feral Cold ones here. Note that it has a 50-turn cooldown duration, which means you won't be able to use this too many times during a campaign. Now, the Right of Sotek gives you attrition to enemy armies. It's really good. The Ambush success chance plus 50%. This is excellent as well. And then some buffs for skinks and other units. The Right of Ferocity gives you unit experience gain, income from post-battle loot, recruit rank, and local recruitment capacity. So excellent when you're trying to recruit some armies. And the Right of Awakening basically costs nothing, only has 10 cooldown, and you should be able to perform this every time. So all that you get is that a Slan Mage Priest will become available for recruitment, which is excellent as well. You should do this every single time that it is available. So yeah, a good way just to obtain that. Now, let me talk about Lord Croak, basically. So this is from a campaign that I was playing. So Lord Croak is insane. A nice hero to have on any army. I liked having him on a basic Lord army so that he can shine on his own away from Mazdamundi, but it's really up to you. His skill line, basically, it's a lot of great spells, including the Deliverance of Itzas, of course. So yeah, pretty much a very good mechanic for you to add to your games. Then we have the Blessed Spawnings. Now, these are given after specific missions, and they're a very good way for you to have better versions of your basic units, as well as another pool for instant recruitment, which is what I love about these ones. Now, in terms of the Geomantic Web, let's talk about this one, shall we? It's quite a soft bonus. It gives you some bonuses to the edicts, in essence, but does not really require anything else other than a building built on your capital provinces. Really, it's either you have good relations with your neighbors, such as you see here, so that they also influence it slightly, or you just build that building and that's it. Then you benefit from better stuff from your edicts. It's just a function that it's very simple, pretty straightforward, doesn't cost too much. Of course, it gives you good buffs, but I kind of wish they'd have done something else with it as well. But oh well, for now, this is what we have. So in terms of province edicts, it must be noted that you have to check on the Geomantic Web, because of course they change, as you can see there. They don't gain too much stuff, but of course they gain some more power. They become more powerful. So let's start with this one, because it has basically the basic one, of course. So You have a growth in income from all buildings. You also have a research rate. This is excellent. Construction time reduction for all your buildings. This is really good as well. And some winds of magic increase, which is excellent for the Lizardmen. So don't underrate this one. You also have a control, corruption, minus attrition when sieging, which is kind of an issue there, but it doesn't really work that much. It doesn't do too much. Then you have more control over plagues, and of course enemy hero action success penalties. The army ability is also useful, especially when under attack. Of course, it's more of a defensive edict. And then you have this alignment of war, this more offensive one. So recruit rank +1, recruitment cost -15%, and some leadership and weapon strength buffs. Of course, once you have the geometric web in full force, those become something like this. You know, much more growth, much more income, first much more research rate, much more control. So basically, yeah. That's what you should aim for. This even includes global recruitment capacity, so be on the lookout for those changes, and if you wish them to increase the geometric web precisely for those changes. Now, in terms of army stances, let me grab any army here. So we have the Astromancy, which is quite interesting. It has vanguards for some units and chance to intercept, as well as ambush success. Now, defense chance there. So use typically when you're defending, when you're trying to go through Skaven terrain, yes, by all means use this. Then you have the Winds of Magic, always good, the channeling one, always good at a cost of 10% movement range. You also have campaign movement range penalty of 50% for the in-camp. This is basic, immune to attrition, enables replenishment, excellent. And then the basic ambush one at 25% move cost. Notice the lack of a raid stance. So Astromancy is very useful against Skaven and Tzeentch to avoid some of ambushes, but you don't have the raid stance, which is kind of sad. I think they would benefit from it, but oh well, it's something different, let's say, for the Lizardmen. Now, Exwattle has 3 special buildings, all pretty important, and including the mine. The mine is great, specifically for, of course, to have all that income. Look at how much you can increase that to 2,600, just that mine. Look at that. Now, you have 8 military buildings. It's one of the ones that cost more buildings. And you also have the weapon crafters, so the smiths, to gain some access to some units, which are important. We're talking about temple guards. We're talking about sacred Kroxigor and horde ones. So basically, very good units, honestly, to reinforce your military. So you kind of need this one. The lucky part is that it can be built on a minor settlement as well. Now, in terms of that, only 3 can be fully built, including the smithy, of course. And then you also have these star chambers. This is the one that gets reduced costs by Mazdamundi. And you also have this scrying pool. So basically, not only you have a lot of military buildings, but look at how many buildings you actually have just for a capital. Now, in the minor settlements, you don't have those star chambers, but you do have the lodestone, which increases the local recruitment capacity and income from all buildings. You may wish to do this in a very good place. But of course, this one gives research rate, which is why I have a couple of them spread out through the empire, basically, here. Now, the infrastructure, let's talk about it. It has growth and casualty replenishment rate. You have an income building, pretty standard one, and then a control building. Nothing too out of the ordinary. It is the geometric web that actually changes things. It gives you income from all buildings, and of course all the issues with the commandments, the edicts becoming much stronger. Now, it's very difficult to properly choose what to build. Really difficult. You'll spend lots of time choosing which buildings and adapting a little bit. So my honest opinion is to focus on getting 2 to 3 provinces for your full military that are close by, and that eases up the task a little bit. Now, research is very good. It does give a lot of campaign and battle buffs throughout. However, it requires lots of buildings. It takes a very long time to complete overall. You can see that I'm nearly like halfway and I'm turned 160. I haven't been focusing on research. If I was, maybe this would increase, and it's something that I would advise as well, because your units get really strong as you get all of these buffs. As always, we have our Lord or specific Legendary Lord buffs or skills. We have the caster line, or the yellow line as it is usually called, the red line or army, and the blue line or campaign line. Starting with the campaign line, you do have upkeep reduction and replenishment, which is always great, but nothing too interesting here on the first line. Just control, corruption, control, recruitment costs, and ambush success chance. Kind of sad that there's no attrition one, which would be excellent given how the faction suffers from climate. You know, that would be excellent to assist. In terms of the red line, it has very good choices, rather cheap. You basically go into either skink units or Saurus units, although combinations of both are allowed. Then you do have the dinosaurs there, of course. It's good combinations. Dinosaurs are mostly based on one skill location, which is excellent. Now, in terms of heroes, a special note to heroes, let me just enter any province here. So your skink chiefs are in charge of replenishing troops, so one of them in each army would be a good idea, of course. You also have the Saurus Scar veteran. It requires a tier 4 building. I dislike when this happens. Same thing for the skink oracle. It takes a while getting to those heroes, honestly. And also, of course, you have a skink priest of beasts and a skink priest of heavens for extra, of course, lores. Now, the best way of getting different lores of magic is actually by recruiting Slan Mage, which of course they will have different ones. This one, for instance, is a fire. You can choose these ones, so that's the idea. You can choose a Slan Mage priest with the ritual. You know, I'll show you right now. Actually, here you can choose a Slan Mage of fire, light, life, or high. So, for instance, let's go into light just for a change, and then you'll be able to recruit one at your provinces. So you'd have a 4th generation here, in this case Slan Mage Priest of Light with, of course, the light spells. So that's kind of the idea there. Magic is really important for the Lizardmen. They have a vast array of good lords of magic if you make use of this, and yeah, you'll have further combinations that will ensure that you get good army compositions all throughout the game. You never grow tired of trying different combinations. Now, here are the red line skills for the Lizardmen. Note how Saurus are divided from skinks, basically with how most missile units are together in one as well. This helps. Cavalry and flyers on the same helps that you have some nice options there as well. For the most part, I either choose to have a rush army without nearly any missiles, or a more defensive army, you know. Now, Mazdamundi, he buffs temple gods, basically just with the upkeep there. And of course, his spells also always enhance their armies. So I'll have 2 alternatives here for you. One with some missile support. This one is actually the one that I used throughout my campaign, and I won with it. It's pretty decent. Mazdamundi is such a beast in itself in terms of magic that he will give you all that you need to win. But the army in itself works really well against most enemy compositions. But of course, you may wish more for a rush composition here, just that I'm using here with lots of dinosaurs. Of course, that's one of the powers of the Lizardmen. They can field vastly different armies. Notice how good in terms of skill points they are, which helps with when most of your better lords will be casters as well. Now, in terms of the skink lords there, basically an army full of skinks to benefit from their bonuses, or from cold ones in Terraton Riders, as you see there. So this is also a nice addition, to have an army of flying units. You know, it's always a good idea to have, you know, different varied play styles, and then you find something that you really like and you go with it. So notice how cheap, again, those are. I always take the average 15, so these are really cheap, really good. And then a couple different ones using some Saurus units for variety, some dinosaurs there, there's some flying units mixed with dinosaurs as well. So everything that you can muster. They can get so many good alternatives, it's crazy. And if you add the outposts, then for sure no one is going to have the same army as the others. So, as a final note, the faction feels a bit more simplified compared to other factions, specifically on their mechanics. At least the Exotal do feel that way. Now, armies are really powerful, and you can see here how many different armies I actually had. And basically, you're able to have strong infantry being able to endure combat for a long time and dishing out tons of damage. You have insane army compositions to try out, so be sure to try those at your own pace. Now, it is a difficult faction to start with, and the army does not play standard at all. It kind of requires you to have some knowledge of your units and capabilities overall. Still, your army consists of good holding infantry, good skirmishers, good cavalry and flyers, good monstrous infantry, great and a vast array of single entities. You lack the typical artillery and you lack some range overall. And of course, your replenishment, this is one of the tricky parts about them. It's average at best. It could be better, but the climate does not help out for the most part, especially in the beginning, which is why it is a difficult faction to start with. Still, I believe that it's now time for you to play with Mr. Lord Mazdamundi.